Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Canale, and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show that tells you how they made their mark. He has written articles about travel and Broadway for MSNBC.com. He has over 20 years of reading minds and performing magic for celebrities, royalty, and America's top CEOs. He's a professional magician and mentalist who's a third-generation psychic. He's also an in-demand performer for corporate and private clients across the nation. He was a magician for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Pirates, and Penguins, and a technical advisor for the Hulu series, Shut Eye. Let's welcome in Michael Gutenplan. Michael, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Since that was written, I actually can add, it's about to come out next week on Neon. It's on Netflix. It's a show called Neon. And I was their illusion designer, out of all things.
Love this. Love this.
In the moment editions. Wow, thank you. I also had a show off Broadway for a while. I had a show in Washington, D.C. I always say, if they're not going to hire me, I got to hire myself.
I understand that your lineage runs deep. Let's start there. Your grandfather's first cousin had a gut instinct to purchase a lottery ticket and won the grand prize in the Irish Sweepstakes, which is how your family came to America in the 30s. And your grandfather's great uncle was the famous Russian mentalist Wolf Messing. So what's it feel like to come from that kind of lineage?
Well, I had dinner with my grandfather last night. I'm chatting with you from New York. It's all real, which I think is the most bizarre part of the story. People would kill for this. And I didn't realize it till later in life when I said, oh my gosh, I have all this great background to use. Here's the thing. It's as real as you want it to be. And I say that about my show, but I talk about my family also. My grandfather's Uncle Julius won the lottery. And I mean, just in time. It was called the Irish Sweepstakes, as you said. They brought the whole family over to America. Some of them went up to Montreal, saved their lives. I wouldn't be here if they didn't win the lottery. We look at my grandfather's great uncle, Wolf Messing, who we don't want to mention this, but and you look at this and you go, whether you believe it or not, you have to accept the reality of lineage. And once I did that, I kind of understood, okay, I have something to work off of. I have somewhere to start. Dinner with my grandfather's 96 years old next month. I had dinner with him and his wife last night in New York City. Look, he hook, line, and sinker believes in aliens. He believes in psychic work. And I have two options. I can roll my eyes and go, Poppy's crazy. Or I can go, this is the greatest gift the universe has ever given to me. And I took the second.
Your grandfather introduced you to magic. He was an amateur magician and a psychic. And your father and grandfather had claimed to have ESP and psychic intuition. I'm guessing here that because of all this background, you were kind of immersed in this as a child and just kind of grew up and go, hey, this is kind of cool.
You would think that, but when grandpa does magic as a kid, it's something grandpa does. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily something you want to do. So I loved magic. I loved watching it. Grandpa, call him Poppy. Poppy would take me into New York City. We'd see Copperfield, Blackstone, Penn and Teller, all these guys. Monday Night Magic when I was in high school. But it was this thing Grandpa did, the thumb coming off and and he had some skills. And with my father and my grandfather, in terms of the ESP, it was an eye roll. It was, oh, give me a break. They're psychic. Yeah, right. Some things take time. Some things take maturity to understand. I think with the psychic thing, it took a real long time to go, oh, I understand what they're saying. It's not a joke. They're not talking to the dead or something like that. They're trusting their instincts. Oh, and as I got into my 30s, I started to understand what that meant. I think with the magic thing, that really was a love that my grandfather gave me. Even though it was something Grandpa did, I loved it. And he instilled that in me. And I can never say thank you enough to him for giving that to me. And then when I started learning magic, it was a weird moment of kind of understanding that my grandfather, who can do a few tricks, there was this other world of magic that I went, oh, there are people that can really do it. I want to be like them. And the greatest moment my grandfather has a big ego. He really believes in himself. The greatest moment for me was where my grandfather kind of acknowledged, okay, maybe you're better than I am. I mean, it was last week, but still.
Michael, you survived viral myocarditis at age 18 and was induced into a coma. Did any of this have to do with you discovering your own ESP?
100%. So it's the summer after freshman year of college. I was working at Macy's Herald Square. My friend Jason's father, who was a bigwig at Federated Department Stores, got me a job in their architecture department, out of all things. And I couldn't breathe one morning. My back hurt. And my mother, who has like a pull up your bootstraps attitude, says, you're fine. Go to work. You slept the wrong way. Well, I get in there. I could barely walk. I could barely breathe. And they were doing construction, and I sliced my finger open, and I have the scar. Sliced my finger open, had to go to the hospital to get stitches. And I'm in the hospital, and I'm saying, I can't breathe right. My back hurts. And my mother's going, oh my gosh, give me a break. You're fine. You hear about your finger. I wake up the next morning, 104 fever. By the end of the day, it was 106. Rushed me to the hospital. Long story short, they incubate me. They put me out. And 2 weeks later, I wake up. They say, okay, you have this heart thing. You survived miraculously. At one point, this is true, they said to my mother, make funeral arrangements. There's no way he's coming out of this. And my mother held my hand. She got in the bed and held me, and she goes, I think we should get a second opinion. I'm very thankful for that second opinion. They kind of figured out what was wrong. They, in essence, let me recover. They just kind of shut down my body with the breathing machines. And I came out of that, and I'll never forget, this is a weird moment. I was looking out the window. In the ICU, they don't have windows.
Right.
They moved me down to the heart floor, and where there was a window. And I looked out and I saw a dumpster with like a tree growing out of next to the dumpster. I started crying. So look how beautiful that is. I'm 18, 19 years old. And the nurse goes, oh, it's the drugs. They make you very emotional. And I said, no, I think I'm seeing things for the first time. And it was right when I was getting into magic, and I started I got out of that, and I just had a sense of who I was and trusting my own instincts in a way that I had never had before that. And I remember going into New York City, Tannen's Magic Shop, and I said, I want to start doing mind reading shows. There's something in me that wants to do this. And the guy behind the counter, his name was Tony Spina, fabulous magic guy, goes, look, kid, nobody wants to see a 18, 19-year-old kid read your mind. It's weird. You could do mental magic. You could do magic tricks with my. I said, no. I want to do it for real. And he goes, wait till you're older. I don't know if it was good advice, but it was the right advice. And I took a little bit of time. I learned magic. I learned how to entertain people where it wasn't a trick. I wasn't tricking them. I was entertaining them with magic. And when I finally spoke to my grandfather about, I've always wanted to do this mind reading. And then my grandfather goes, you're a third generation psychic. You got to do the mind reading show. You got it in you. Literally how he sounds and how he said it. It all made sense. It all connected. But I do link it to the viral myocarditis, where I had this I describe it as you're 70 years old and you have your heart attack, and you kind of have that crisis in your life, and you buy I guess you're 56 years old now. You buy a convertible. That was what I had at 18 years old. I had that, oh my gosh, I almost died. I got to take it easy. I got to enjoy every moment. And that allowed me to, I think the takeaway from getting sick and having a doctor say to you, you should be dead. There is no medical reason why you are alive other than a miracle, whatever you want to call it. The takeaway for me was, I have to trust the universe. I have to trust these things that are given to me. And it sounds foo-foo, and it sounds, whatever you want to call it, phony, I guess is the word that some people would use, a skeptic would use. But I really believe that the universe puts things in front of you, and it's our job to open the door and go through it. And it started at that moment.
Does everyone then have psychic potential, or is it as simple as go with your gut?
I think psychic potential is go with your gut. It's a muscle.
All right.
And the more we use it, the better we get at it. Again, I don't talk to the dead. I find it very hard to believe that Great Aunt Sally or whoever would come to you because I gave you $20 to read I find that hard to believe. I've seen ghosts. I believe that there is something else. I don't necessarily know a medium is the real thing. I'm not denying it, and I would never take away someone's experience. I think that's important. I would never take away someone's belief or experience. That's not my place. But I think when I talk about psychic potential, psychic's a triggering word. People will fight you. No such thing as psychics. I go, well, have you ever thought of someone and they call you on the phone or they text you? Well, yeah. Have you ever walked into a building and you walk in and you go, ooh, this doesn't feel right. And you walk out, right? That's your intuition. That's your instinct. And I don't think it's a power. I think it's a skill and a muscle. And the more you use it, the better you get. Intuition and instinct. Instinct is that gut reaction, right? I'm going to touch a stove and I pull my hand back because it's hot. That's your instinct. I shouldn't. Intuition is actually a scientific thing. It is using past experiences in an instant to judge how your body is going to react in the moment. And a lot of those reactions come from things we don't remember. It's your past experiences. So you have those moments in your life that in the back of your head get placed. And later in life, something happens and you go, ooh, I don't want to do that. Or, oh, I'm going to do this. That's your psychic intuition. It's not a metaphysical thing. It's not the spirits telling you. I do believe it is the universe. That's a different thing. But your psychic potential is trusting your past experiences, known or unknown. We could talk about past lives and all that, known or unknown, to dictate your current actions. And we listen to it. The more we do it, the better we get. That muscle idea.
Listeners, check this out. Michael has had numerous correct predictions, including the winners of 10 Super Bowls and the top 3 places of 14 Kentucky Derbies. He predicted 15 spins of the roulette wheel at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas by closing his eyes, and a number would pop in which he bet and won, and is now banned for life from that casino. I live in Las Vegas. My question, Michael, is, did they approach you? Was it security? I mean, I got to guess in Vegas, if you hit 15 in a row on a roulette wheel, somebody had to come up to you.
So that is a very interesting story. And this is all, someone said, can you verify this? I said, yes, I do have a trespass written out from the Cosmopolitan. You can go into it. Now it has changed hands. So I don't know, now that MGM owns it, I don't know if I'm still technically banned. I'm not banned from all the MGM properties because I enjoy playing there. So what happened was I was with my grandfather, out of all people, and we were going to see Elton John at Caesars, but we had dinner somewhere else. And we were walking through the Cosmopolitan to get to the other side, which is Caesars.
Yep.
Or the Bellagio to get to Caesars. And we had time. We had an hour or two. And I said, well, let's play the roulette wheel. And he goes, all right, psychic boy, let's see what you can do. And I looked at the wheel, and I can't explain this. This is not something. Here's the thing. When a psychic, people will go up and they go, you're a psychic. Why can't you win the lottery? We can predict people. We can predict how people will act. It's based on past actions. Randomness is not really predictable. I can't explain this other than I looked at the wheel. As it was spinning, I closed my eyes, and then I opened my eyes, and one number would pop out, and I would go 4. And we'd put, $20, 30, it was a $25 chip, I guess it is, $25 on 4, and 4 popped up. And 4 won. My grandfather goes, all right, do it again. Put down $25. We take the money, it's $300 or whatever it is, take it. And about, 13 times, people start to go, hold on. So I said, oh, look at the time. We got to go Elton John. And we had about an hour and a half at this point, maybe an hour at this point. So we cash in the chips and we walk out, and these 2 guys say, excuse me, sir, can you come with me? Like I said to my grandfather, go to the concert. I'll meet you there. And he goes, I'm not leaving you. I said, no. It's trust me, nothing's wrong. Take the cash. It's wrong. So my grandfather left, and they brought me into a back room, It's white with cameras.
Yep.
A police officer, Metro police officer came in and says, they believe you were cheating. They frisked me to make sure I don't have any devices on me. I said, look, this is what happened. I would look at the wheel. I would close my eyes. The cop goes, come on, tell me the story. I know you're probably doing this all over town. I said, look, you have it on camera. There was no funny business. I'm staying next door at the Aria. You can check it out. I don't know what to tell you. This doesn't happen all the time. I play a lot and I don't win a lot. It's not like I do it every time. This was a lucky streak. And this is how I did it. And the cop's going, come on, be honest with me. I mean, come on, just tell me. And I mean, this guy is like intimidating. Look, buddy, I'm being completely honest with you. This is what happened. The cop leaves. He goes, all right, there's nothing we can do. He doesn't have any devices on him. He doesn't have any proof. The casino comes in and says, okay, sir, you need to leave our property. You need to sign this. And they took a picture of me, a Polaroid. And I said, what's that? And they go, you're in our trespass book, our black book, a trespass book. I said, what the hell is this? They go, you are no longer permitted on our property. I said, well, what if I want to eat? Yeah, that pizza place. They go, nope. So this is true. I have to walk from the Aria around the outside of the Cosmopolitan up to like where the Polo Club is and then cross the street. I can't walk there. I will say, between you and me and your millions of listeners, I did on my last trip to Vegas walk through the Cosmo, and it was the scariest. I was convinced the SWAT team, because it had changed hands to MGM, and I said, okay, I can play at all the other MGMs. I was convinced at some point the SWAT team was going to swarm in and grab me. But it's the darndest story. And people go, well, why can't you do that every time? And I'm very honest. I say, it is luck of the draw. This is not. It's trusting your instinct. And for me in that moment, it was the instinct of the numbers popping up. But there is a second part to the intro that you just gave, which is the Kentucky Derby. And this is where it gets really weird. I had predicted all the Kentucky Derby stuff, and I predicted there was a horse called Country House. Country House came in second place. First place was denied first place. And the second place became first place 4 years ago.
Yep.
Made international news. I had predicted that. I actually put money on the second place, and I won a lot. And I got booked on a cruise ship, and they said, my market is ultra high net worth families, is what they're called, very wealthy people. And I got hired for a cruise ship of a family. And I got there and I said, well, what is, I'm doing 5 days of shows for this group of 80 people. They had bought out a cruise ship. They were the owners of the horse that had won. It was a celebration party for their win, and an anniversary party also. But what are the odds of that?
That is super cool. Then tell me, after all that, how did you get caught up in a scam on the streets of New York City in an illegal betting game? That was actually, so that goes back seminal moments in a life. I can't believe you know about that. Wow. Holy smokes. I was 16 years old, 15 years old, I was sophomore in high school. And I grew up on Long Island. So I went to boarding school for high school, a place called Berkshire School. I love it. It's my favorite place in the world. And I had a friend, Tamara. And Tamara and I went into Manhattan one day, and we're in Chinatown. You're kids, you're sitting 15, 16 years old. The guy goes, you guys 18? Well, if you're 15, 16 years old and someone says, are you 18? What do you say? You say, yes, I'm 18. Because you want to win some money? And I've always loved gambling. I'm a gambler. I mean, I remember when I must have been 6, 7 years old. All I wanted was lotto tickets, scratchers. I mean, my father had slot machines, and he collected antique slot machines. So I love gambling. And we end up in this back. I'll never forget. It was like a plastic store. It was like a weird plastic store. And we end up in the back room, and there was like a bucket of cash hanging, it was like a numbers board and dice. And this person, I think their name was Roz or something, like a real deep smoker's voice, a little androgynous. You couldn't tell man or woman. Definitely did some heroin. This is the 90s, picture New York 90s, a little dangerous. Yep.
And Roz goes, you want to win some money? And I'm like, oh, yes. And Tamara's going, well, let's see where this goes. But first roll is free. You got to roll the dice. if you get whatever, you win, right? We roll the dice and we're like 3 off. I'm like, oh, you're 3 off. So for $1, you can roll again. Well, we roll again for $1. You go, oh, you hit the double mark. Now it's $2. Well, 2 became 4, 4 became 6, 6 became 12. And before you know it, it's like $200 a roll. And I'm 16. I don't know anything. And all I know is I'm like 1 away. And the way this game rolls is you have to get the exact number. So every time you go over, you stay where you are. Well, the scam is the way it is you'll never, mathematically, you can't win. And I don't know the math. I'm not a math person, but math, I maybe 10 years ago, there's a book by a guy named Simon Lovell called How to Cheat at Everything. And I'm reading this book about scams and carnival games, and this game is in it. And it like brought back a flood of memories of like, oh my God, I got scammed. Pivotal moment in my life. I remember we lose all my money, maybe $300, which is everything I had. And I went to the bank. I had like a teenage ATM card. Mm-hmm. Everything's gone. And the guy goes, here's $20, kid. Now you learned a lesson. And I thought to myself, the lesson is I could do this. Let's be honest. No, I remember sitting on the sidewalk, just being heartbroken, crying. It was 15, 16 years old. And I think it's important that kids get scammed. I think and we see it now with online stuff, but it was a real pivotal moment in my understanding, because I could go, looking at my career right now, I can go 2 ways. I can go televangelist, psychic, and scam people, or I can entertain them with their own abilities. And I do think it links back to that moment where I go, I don't like this feeling of feeling scammed.
Tell me and my listeners how magicians and the CIA have worked together, being you applied and was accepted to be an officer for the CIA.
Yes.
But you turned it down.
Thank you for saying officer. They are not agents. They're officers. So I graduated college. I moved to New York City. I work in TV for a little bit. I do some magic stuff in New York. And I love my country. And it was, we're still in the 9/11 era. So we're within 10 years of 9/11. It's 2004 or 5. So I applied to the CIA. I thought my skills can be used there. And I got pretty far. I got invited to DC. I got through interviews. I met people. I had some really literally can't talk about it. But boy, did I have some interesting interviews with some interesting people. I mean, one of the guys who interviewed me, I was like, oh my God, this is like out of a movie. This can't be real. This has to be a setup. And ultimately, I got what's called a COE, Conditional Offer of Employment, where they tell you, here's what you're going to make, here's what your job is going to be. And I really, the thing about applying to a place like that is the further you get down the application process, which involves lots of interviews, lots of meetings, you learn a little bit more each level. And at a certain point, I kind of learned what I would be asked to do and what I would be doing. And I realized, this is not for me. This is not going to make me happy. This is going to create problems later in life. I'm going to have to turn it down. What I thought was fascinating is it did come back full circle. I worked for Discovery Communications for a while. I got to go to the headquarters to try to create some TV shows. But it gave me an incredible appreciation for the men and women who do work in the intelligence service. They are the greatest asset America has in protecting itself, and the world has. I mean, they don't just protect America; they really do protect the world. They put themselves on the line every day. It's an incredible world, but the partnership between magicians goes back years and years. There was a guy named John Mulholland who had written the CIA manual for deception, which is you can buy it in Barnes and Nobles now, and he would teach. And most people don't know this. The CIA has classes for their recruits, for their officers in training. They teach pickpocketing, they teach magic, they teach sleight of hand, because those are really, I used to laugh. What's the difference between a magician and a cheat? When one gets caught, they get shot. The other one gets laughed at. So you think about spies, they're in the cheat world. If you get caught, you're in a lot of trouble. So they are being taught the skills and the trade of magic, pickpocketing and all this. But there's a slightly higher bar for success for them. They really don't want to get caught. And once I kind of learned that, I really learned a tremendous amount about the history of magic and the CIA. One of the interim directors of the CIA is a wonderful amateur magician. There are a tremendous amount of officers in the CIA and that work with the CIA who are involved in magic. It's a logical combination, and mentalism also, the mind reading world. So once I kind of got into that world, I made friends there. I do have a lot of friends in that service. And you just kind of learn not to ask too many questions.
To piggyback that, then, does law enforcement reach out to you for help, maybe solving crimes? I know you don't speak to the dead, or maybe even murders. So
I think it's very important that the public understands a few things. If you believe in psychics, if all hope is lost, why not? That's my feeling. Why not? But that should come when all hope is lost. It shouldn't be your first call. If you have a problem, go to a therapist, go to a professional, leave the psychics for all hope is lost, mediums, whoever. That's my feeling. That's just my personal belief. I don't want to knock anybody's career down. The police do not reach out to me. What I do on stage is a show. And even though what I am doing is real, I am reading your body language, I am predicting the future, it isn't within the confines of a stage. In my show, I do a body language. I would call it reading your tells, right? If we were playing poker, it would be reading your tells. And people come up to me after the show and they go, "Oh my gosh, you must be great at a poker game." And I go, "No. At a poker game, I would have to study you for years to know what your subtleties are. I am on stage. I am 3, 4, 10 steps ahead of where you are. So I can do things on my show that realistically I cannot do in real life. I think the things I have done with the police, I've gotten phone calls from friends and they say, "Hey, can you look at this? What are we missing?" And I would say, when this happened, this is what you missed. Because I'm looking at it through an illusionist size. I'm looking at it through a slightly different. The secret of magic is A plus B never equals C. A plus B equals D, E, F, and G. That's how you trick someone. Okay. But, the movies in Hollywood create a very fun view of magicians and psychics and mentalists. The reality is most of what is being done, even if it's real, can only be done on stage. I have helped the police out. I have not used my psychic powers for solving murders and all that stuff. I would love to. I wish I could solve the world's problems with my powers, but that would be crossing a line even for me, and my line is pretty far out there.
I want to rewind a little bit. You spoke about previously working in television. You had jobs at ETV and Evolution Media as an executive assistant to Lisa Berger and then Doug Ross and Alec Baskin. What did those jobs teach you, Michael, that you're still using today?
Never put anything in writing. There you go.
Okay. I like that.
It's Hollywood is an incredible place. And that was in my formative years. After that, I worked at Discovery and some other companies where I got to kind of create and help create TV shows. But those 2 years those 2 jobs where I was an assistant, and I was also an assistant at Discovery Studios for a guy named Rob Hammersley and Daniel Soyset, both of who I think are just the greatest people in the world. And it was at Discovery that my old boss, Gary Shapiro, brought me out of assistant world and gave me kind of the junior executive break. He's my hero for that. What I learned, and this is going to link to everything else. You got to trust yourself. There are going to be times and places where people just tell you no, because it's not in their best interest to say yes. It's not because it's wrong. It's not because you're wrong. It's because by saying yes, it doesn't achieve their goals. So being an assistant, my job was not to pitch ideas and create shows. My job was to answer the phone, keep the calendar correct. Nobody told me that. I was told, hey, you got to prove yourself. You got to speak up and pitch and make an impact. I learned to not overstep my space. I learned to stay in my lane. And I think the mistake that a lot of young people make when they get those opportunities is they think this is my chance to prove myself. And the way to prove yourself is doing great work and at the right moment, standing up for yourself at the right moment, saying, hey, I'm ready for this. Give me the promotion, boss.
Speaking of moment then, what was the moment when you decided, you know what, enough's enough. I'm going on my own. I'm going to start up Close-Up Productions.
I had a job in television and I created, I can't talk about it because it might get made, but I created what I think is the best idea I had ever had. And it was out of my hands. And I had spent a career pitching ideas, having people say no, and then 6 months later, they would be on TV. And I would get a, oops, I guess you were right, over and over. And the reason I think Gary Shapiro, who was at Discovery, is my hero is because he used to put it really well. He'd go, I think this is not a great idea. I can't wait for you to prove me wrong. What a great boss that is. What a great way to look at your employees. I don't think it's right. Prove me wrong. I don't think any of my other bosses ever said that. They would say no, and that was the end of discussion. And at a certain point, you have to look at what's going on around you and go, everybody's saying no. And a lot of not all of them, I mean, some of my ideas were really bad, but a lot of them were made by other people. You know, the common conscious, things happen. And I was, at a certain point, I said, you know what? Everybody's saying no to me. Screw it. I'm going to do it myself. And I left the job and I started doing magic because I had to pay the bills. And that's when I had that conversation with my grandfather about the psychic stuff. And he goes, now is the time. And I've always had a belief that, you know what, if someone's not going to hire you, you got to hire yourself. You know, if nobody's going to give you that opportunity, make the opportunity. And for me, as much as I wanted to work in television, as much as I wanted to create TV shows, the universe said magic, mind reading, magic, mind reading. And eventually this mind reading psychic thing was much more successful than I ever was in TV. I wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't for all the no's. I wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't for being the assistant and kind of learning to be in my lane. Even if the idea I was pitching was right, it wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right place. It was never, even if they sold it and made it, it was never going to be mine. So you have to, I think the lesson that I learned from those assistant jobs is timing. That's what I would say. It's knowing when to speak up.
That timing is everything. It really is. And since then, you've performed in 24 countries and 49 states. What state's missing?
North Dakota and Kansas.
Okay.
There are two states. It's 48 states. I thought I had performed in North Dakota, and then I did. I was looking at I was going through my stuff. And I was like, oh man, I overshot myself there. North Dakota and Kansas are the two states I've never performed in. It's I have an interesting market. So I do country clubs, high net worth families, and corporate events. So at some point, I will be in Kansas. You know, there's country clubs there. There's rich people everywhere. North Dakota, we'll see. Maybe Bismarck. You know, there's people in Bismarck.
Hear that, listeners? If you're in Kansas or North Dakota, I need your help. We got to get this done. We got to get from 48 to 49 to 50. Michael, let me ask you this then. How does one become an expert at palm reading as you are?
Great question. So I've always been fascinated with the psychic world, even because of my grandfather. You know, it was just something we grew up with, even though it was something goofy Grandpa did. And I got into tarot and I got into crystals, and you know, I in high school especially, I really got into crystals. And I kind of started I realized, the palm is always with you. So if I'm doing a magic show or something and I'm there just a little, I ran out of material, I can always say, let me read your palm. So I started learning that. And I got a phone call from a buddy, John Armstrong, who's a phenomenal magician and top of the line. And he goes, hey, I'm working as a magic consultant on a TV show. Can you do palm reading? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, they need a consultant to help the actors understand what they're doing, make it look real. And, it was one of those moments I would describe it as going and being the consultant for a TV show. You very quickly realize, oh, I do know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just need a little prover, because I could do it for shows, but there's no, you're kind of doing it for yourself. What is someone saying? Well, that wasn't good. But when you're going with actors in a TV show and there's real stakes, it was a real prover for me. And I was so thrilled with that opportunity. But really, that's a skill. You can buy books. You can go to your public library, you buy a book, palm readers for beginners kind of thing. I would say 20% of it is understanding, I'm going to put in quotes here, the science. Mm-hmm. This is what this line is. This is what this, kind of like tarot. That's 20%. The other 80% is experience and knowing how to talk to people and knowing what they need and reading their body language and reading their signs and being able to talk to someone on a human level and saying, here is what your palm is, and then trusting your experience, right? We talked earlier about instinct and intuition, trusting your experience to read the palm and say to someone, what happened to you when you were 13? Did you hurt yourself? Did you fall? Who did you lose in your 20s? Did you lose a parent? Oh my gosh, tell me about that. And the thing I love about palm reading, as opposed to all other forms of kind of psychic work, is you're reading a map. Sometimes you get lost, sometimes you get it wrong, but you will read that map and find the most incredible things. And it's not like when you do a tarot or something and you're looking at the person and you're using their reactions to dictate what you're saying next. You're just going. And you're either right or wrong. And it's so incredible how often you're right. And it really is, it's a skill. The power is your ability to do it. Your power is your experience.
Magic is, how did he do that? Mentalism is, how did he know that? But is psychic, what does he see? I
would say psychic is what does he or she feel?
Okay.
Yeah, you're not, everybody would call it different. For me, it's feeling. It's going with that gut feeling, is what a psychic is really doing. And there are psychics and there are frauds.
Your performance options on mentalist.show/options, which I'll put a link in the show notes, as well as your website for our listeners, are strolling magic, psychic entertainment, and a mentalism show. Which one do you prefer the most?
Mentalism show. I think I call it psychic entertainment. And in that show, it's 100% interactive. If I'm up there without, you are the star of the show. I'm just the facilitator. So it really is 100%. It really is 100% about the audience's experience and giving them the moment to come up on stage and be a star. And have incredible moments of mind reading and psychic phenomena. Again, it is a show, but it's as real as you're going to get. And it's fun. I start the show by saying nobody's embarrassed. Nobody has a bad time. And I that is my truth. Nobody will ever have a bad time. You will walk out of that theater going, oh my gosh, that was the most incredible evening of entertainment we've ever had. Magic, as you just said, there's an agreement. I know you are doing something. The audience says, I don't know how you did it. I don't know what you did, but you and I can agree you, the magician, did something.
Right.
Right. With mentalism, there is that element of, hold on, was that real? Did they know it? That's fun. That's a sophisticated kind of magic that gets you thinking. That creates conversation after the show where Bob at the table goes, give me a break. It's all a bunch of baloney. It's all magic tricks. And Diane is going, no, hold on. I thought that. I didn't write it down. I didn't say it. How did this guy or woman know what I was thinking?
Mm-hmm.
That's the power of mentalism. It creates a conversation long after the show is done. And isn't that the goal of any theatrical performance?
On the heels, then, I'm sure you've had this. How do you deal with a tough crowd?
That's a great question. I think that's why you pay a premium for an experienced performer. For anybody listening who's going, yeah, this guy sounds great, but we're just going to go with Bob, the magician, to do our next show. I performed in almost any venue you can imagine, for any size crowd you can imagine. Experience teaches you how to handle a tough crowd. I created a show for the hardest to please people, the people that were dragged in by their spouses, the people who do not want to be there. There's, a corporate event. Not one person wants to be at that show. They want to be in the hospitality suite getting drunk. Mm. So I understand. How do I deal with a tough audience? I understand why they're a tough audience. They don't want to be there. So I need to create a show for that audience. The other people who do want to be there are easy. They're going to love no matter what I do. So by playing to that audience. Now, there is a difference between a heckler and an overly enthusiastic spectator. The heckler is a troublemaker. I did a show the other day. I said, hi, everybody. My name is Mike Gutenplan. I'm a third-generation psychic. And the guy goes, yeah, right. That's a heckler. That's someone who doesn't want to be there. They're just trouble. An overly enthusiastic spectator is the person that starts talking to you in the middle of the show. They just want to be involved and understanding the difference. The overly enthusiastic spectator becomes part of the show. They become fun. Mm-hmm. You can shush them. The audience is on your side. The heckler, you need to control. You bring them up. It's like having an unruly student in class. You bring them up at the very beginning of the show. You give them their moment to shine, and then you give them a stern look, and you shut the microphone off, and you say, "It's my show, buddy. Sit down and shut up." and that works. Believe it or not, showing that that you're in control and you smile. You say that with a smile. You don't actually want to hurt someone's feelings ever. You don't want to embarrass someone ever. Never embarrass someone. But you turn the microphone off and you say, look, buddy, you're ruining it for everybody. Keep your mouth shut and sit down. They get it. They get it.
Speaking of your show, your first open to the public performance will be filmed on November 8th. This is going to come out after that at the world famous Magic Castle. How excited are you to do this? And tell me and my listeners what the show is about.
I'm very excited about this. So it is not a Magic Castle show. Legally, I have to say that. I said earlier in the show, when nobody else hires you, you hire yourself, right? That was what I said. That was the lessons I learned. Well, I have a very unique market. My market is ultra high net worth families, country clubs, and corporate events. And what I realized is I can't afford my own show. I wouldn't be in my own audience. So I want to start doing theaters. I want to start doing cruise ships. I want to get myself out there to a bigger crowd. And what I realized is I had built up a great business in this world, but it's word of mouth. It's, hey, you got to hire this guy. He's great. So my video, my professional video is not as good as my show is. That's being honest. That's being completely self-reflective and saying this is not representative of my work. So I am renting. This is fully self-funded. The Magic Castle's Palace of Mystery, big theater, 100-something seats. I am bringing in a film crew, 5 cameras, a producer, and we are filming my whole show plus additional material. It's going to be a 90-minute show, and then we're going to give it to an editor and we're going to chop it up. But it's also, there's a second part, which is I'm inviting all of LA. I'm inviting anybody who wants to come because it is a chance for me to see, does this play to the hoi polloi? Is it just the hoi polloi? Is it just the sophisticated elite? Or does anybody who show up really get this? Did I create a show for only the rich and famous? No, I don't think I did. I just want to create a product that is enjoyed by everybody. So this experience, you asked if I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. I am so excited because, no joke intended, as a psychic, I know this is going to be the greatest thing for the next 10 years of my career. It is money well spent. And I know that my audience is going to have the most incredible experience. And it's going to allow me in the end to bring it to so many more people by showing what the true quality is.
Listeners, go to the show notes. I'm going to put links where you can get connected to Michael and check out his website and all the stuff that's on there. So go there and check all that out. Michael, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're in a hotel room in Manhattan with a beautiful view that none of us can see behind you, seeing this as audio, but thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. You know what? I'm going to leave your listeners with one thing, and that is always trust yourself. And when your gut says yes and everybody else is saying no, sometimes you just got to step aside and do it on your own. It's worth it.
Listeners, do me a favor and join the exclusive Before the Lights members group. Click the link in the show notes. It includes a private Zoom calls with former guest, a one-of-a-kind poker chip that is a collector's item, extra content, and more. It's only $7.99 a month, and it's your way to support the show. That's going to do it for this episode of Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. And until next time, everybody, I salute a chin chin.